Hi, everybody. It is Stacey Calder from the Business Success Network podcast, and I am delighted to be joined by my good friend and networking colleague, if we like, we're going to call you that. I don't know. That's how we met, wasn't it? Neil Porter. Hello.
Hello. How are we doing?
Really well. Yeah. Do you know what? And when you think back to how we did meet, God, it's some years ago now.
It's nearly 10. Well, yeah, it is nearly 10 years because it was way back in 2013, I think. I believe maybe 2014 at a push, but the first time I picked a camera up and I was just dabbling in getting out and about whilst I was still working full time. And it was one of your what was a group called that you ran at the time. Honestly, I can't remember. Whatever.
I know what you mean. It was the previous company, wasn't it?
Yeah, you ran some. Yeah, so I met you there. Some places in Leamington. So yes, it is nearly not far off 10 years. Then is.
So right at the very start, almost of my networking journey, definitely, and my business journey. So it's been a pleasure, and actually, I think it just shows that networking works, doesn't it? Because we've both kind of changed career paths, if you like. Well, I say career paths. We've both done different things. You touched on there. You were in a day job. You were suited and booted as IT. But I knew that wasn't your passion.
Yeah, I think it showed, didn't it? I think
a little bit. Yeah, I'll be honest.
A tiny bit. One of the latest or the last times I went to a networking event, as in my IT capacity, and somebody at my table asked me what I did, and I just sort of went computers and shrugged my shoulders. Just the passion was definitely not there, and that was the point when I went, I really got to knock this on the head forever and do what I want to do.
When you're not passionate about it, nobody else is going to be passionate about it if you're not, are they? So This leads us nicely on then to my first question, Neil, which is what inspires you?
Well, yeah, this I suppose it comes down to a bit of an aspiration, really, that to be recognised. I kind of get in there locally where people see my work, and you develop a style as a photographer. You have a certain approach with photos, and when you start to really develop that and hone it a bit and make it your own, you get to the point where people will see your work and recognise, oh, that looks like that's a Neil, and that's where that's a Neil Porter there, that kind of photo. And I see it with guys and girls I follow, world famous photographers, and they're instantly recognisable. One of my absolute favourites, a guy called Rouse, who's a nature and a wildlife photographer. And the minute you see a picture, you know it's one of his straight away. I've got a couple of his books, and he's absolutely phenomenal. But he has a very distinct style. It's backlit. It's really it's different. But it's getting to the point where you've become so comfortable with what you're doing, and you develop a style, and people recognise it instantly, and that's really what's inspiring me to get to that point, which is obviously a big ask because the world's a big place and it's full of photographers and all this. But you can just start locally and just become more renowned locally, and then potentially nationally, and it just hopefully builds from there. But that's
and you have had some of that success, haven't you? Because I know, I can't remember where it was, but we were talking, or we were in a group or something, and someone said, that's Neil Porter. I recognise that print, that kind of design that you do. So you are starting to see that happen across the county, if not further afield.
Yeah, that's right. And it's happened a couple of times. I know there was one where somebody had saw I don't know where it was, a picture. Another one where Chris from the Amethyst Centre in Coventry.
That was it. That was the one.
That was the one I must have told you about, where someone had walked in and went, "Oh, that's one of Neil's prints." She's got a few Coventry pictures on her walls in there. So, yeah, it's good. It's very good. It's quite well, it's just quite a buzz, isn't it? It's like, well, actually, people recognise
Oh,
your work
absolutely.
and
You
they're
want to be
seeing it around.
recognised. Yeah.
Yeah, so
You want to be
that's my
recognised for a good job well done.
yeah, that's it. Just kind of not to be confused with. I'm not particularly. I don't want to be famous because I think that's a horrible thing. But I want to be when people see my work. I want them to know, and that comes, I suppose, from developing locally, and then, as you well know, with social media and Instagram's my particular favourite. A perfect platform for sharing pictures globally and expanding your reach across there. So yeah, that's the inspiration, or the I don't know if that's the inspiration or my it's what inspires me to achieve something.
Brilliant. And you were not inspired by technology at the end of your technology career. And what I love is to see, it is a completely different career, but actually you are so comfortable behind the camera and you make people feel really comfortable in front of the camera as well, which is really lovely. So, and I know you've touched on the kind of the nature side of things that you do. You do a lot of, you do a lot of different kinds of photography. So you'll do the nature shots and you've took shots before, and I'm thinking, I'm tilting my head and thinking, what's that? But you always make them really kind of creative, and then you do the other kind of side of it, which is like the headshots and the pretty stuff that you've been doing. What do you think? Because that is kind of a big, broad set of different skills there within photography. What do you think makes a great image?
So I think the thing for me is and a little bit like when you talk about with social media and when you help people with what they're doing, you've got to stop people scrolling. So that's it. Everything is online, isn't it? So for me, an image has got to be something that it's got massive impact immediately. So you're looking on your phone or you're on your laptop or whatever you're using, and it makes you stop and go, well, what's that? And it could be a whole load of reasons why it makes you stop, because we're all different. So I have some things where, which is why I do, because I enjoy lots of different type of photography, but I do different types because I enjoy it, and B, other people enjoy it. So some people might love to see a city skyline, and others wouldn't even look twice at it. They would just walk past it. Whereas if they had a raindrop on a flower, it might catch their attention. But whatever it is, it has to have massive impact. So it's got to be a bold color. It's got to be a certain composition, because obviously there's millions and tens of millions of photos out there. So to stand out and make somebody stop what they're doing, it's the impact. It's that visual intrigue, and it's hard to say that there isn't one single thing because of everybody's got different tastes. But so long as what you're photographing, be that a city or a flower or a landscape, it's just got to be eye-catching, absolutely striking.
And I like that. Yeah, I love the thing about you've got to stop people in their tracks. Really, really agree with that. And that's the same, for me as a social media manager, like you say, you've got to have a powerful image, because if you don't, they're not even going to stop and read what you've actually written. Something you touched on there with the style and the impact. We had a conversation recently within the pro subscription group where we talked about, you've just said in a different part of that, you can't please everybody. Now we've talked about color pop, as I know it, as you call it, and we've talked about it annoys a lot of photographers. A lot of photographers don't like it. And we put it out there, didn't we, to the community? We said, what do you think of it? And actually some of the ones in fact, I've got it here. Look at this, Brolly. So for those of you on YouTube, you'll see I'm holding up one of Neil's prints. If you're listening to this, you'll have missed that. You'll need to go into the community and have a look at this conversation. But we talked about color pop, and you said, I don't care if other photographers, they're not my audience. And I just, I love that you can be so kind of happy with what you're doing, that that's not always the case, because I think when you start in business, you take on what other people think, don't you? And you can listen to those voices, and it can be quite challenging.
Yeah, that's it. So you're looking around other photographers that you're starting out. Yeah, you're trying to pick up what works, what doesn't work, whilst also taking the time to develop your own style. But that doesn't always come easy early on, because it's new to you, and you think, well, I need to follow these guys. They look successful, and eventually, then you get to the point where you're like, well, actually, I don't need to follow what they're doing at all, because now I've developed my own skills. I'm comfortable enough to have my own approach and do what I want to do. And like in the case of Colourpop, so many professional photographers, and they just pour scorn on it. It's no good. They won't do it. Not interested. It's tacky. It's this. It's that. But like we've proved, and I've asked several other people over the years several times, and I see it in the houses I photograph as my bread and butter day job, if you like, where I do lots of property photography. Pictures with one colour, the Colourpop, are easily the most popular one there is. Easily, hands down, in every house I've been to. So, as someone who wants my prints to appeal to the general public, if you like, the non-photographers, what am I going to do? I'm not going to do something that might appeal to a very small amount of photographers who will never buy my work because they're photographers. I'm going to do something that's going to appeal to my target audience and the people that are looking to add something into their home or their office. So yeah, but it wasn't always that way. Occasionally you would start with thinking, I need to just do what the rest of them do.
Absolutely. And once you've kind of found your creative streak and you found your style, and actually you found your audience as well, because like you say, I always find photography and creative businesses really interesting, because you are very much you're not really a business to, B2B, you're a business to customer in terms of your prints. Yes, you do the things like the headshots and the property portfolios and stuff like that. But like you say, going into all those properties, it's just showing you what people actually want. So slightly different when it's business to customer, but you've got to listen to them and you're giving them what they want. So I'm a big fan of Colourpop, whether that makes me old or dull or misguided, whatever it is. We'll just stick in our own little world, Neil, and
that's right.
Colourpop everywhere.
It can go all over.
And actually, we did do some, didn't we, with a family shoot? You did some for me that was Colourpop.
Yeah, with the flowers. I can't remember which of the lads
we had yellow flowers, and we had the children were black and white. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, that's right. It worked really well.
So then, talking about proper photography, if you like, let's go back onto that subject. Let's stop talking about Colourpop for a minute. Can it be planned, or is it is it just a capture a spur of the moment thing? Does it have to be in the right kind of instance? I know for me personally, if you stick me in front of a white screen and take photos, I hate it. It feels staged. I'm not good. If you catch me at an event, kind of side on, whooping or something like that, they tend to work nicer. That's me and my confidence, I think. But you tell me, what's proper photography, and
I would agree. I think that business portraits, the headshots, we've done headshots in the past and done some family photos for you, which are a little bit different because, people do family portraits in studios, but they're not my cup of tea at all. I've never had a studio. I've never had an interest in having a studio. I don't like that. I don't even know what the word. I don't like that environment. Yeah, it's just. And some people, I know a guy who does it. He's very good at it, and he takes very good photos. But it's just not me. It's not me at all. So I stay away from it. And if I do business headshots, it's always at the customer's location, or we'll go somewhere outdoors, and it's nice and relaxed, and that works for me. And it's the same with family stuff. It's got to be out. We go out to an outdoor field, park, anywhere, and just get people a little bit more relaxed. So same with events and stuff. If you're at an event, like, you know, you as a photographer, I would always try and just step back and try, blend in the background, really, because when you get those candid photos, if you're, like you say, you're whooping on the stage or you're at an event or you're deep in conversation with someone, you're capturing someone very honestly. They're not aware that you're photographing them. They might know there's a photographer in the room, but they're not really like hawks watching. And you just get that more of that person coming through the picture. So yeah, I'm not one for planning massively. I don't think it's not with business photography, things like that. The stuff I do for my prints, tends to be a bit of planning involved, because I want to check that the right weather that I'm looking for is there. So I might be after a rainy night somewhere, or I'm on a nice sunrise. So there's definitely some forward planning goes into that. Although occasionally I'll just get up, go somewhere and just see what you can capture. It might be on a whim, but more often than not, there's a bit of forward planning with what
you want to capture and where you kind of stuff there is about. Yeah, and I it amazes me. I think you've got an eye for this, and you know, some of the close ups, like you say, of raindrops and things, and I'm thinking, how do you even think about that and get to, and yeah, I can't imagine you kind of lying on a floor. Well, I can imagine it, and it's just something that I love to think I'm creative. Not a chance I would even be able to, like, not even take the photo. I wouldn't even think about it.
I've had to think to myself, I've got high vis jackets in the boot now for if I'm going out doing night stuff, because one night down in Evesham, and we were doing some pictures down by the canal, by the Avon, sorry, and of course it's pitch black and we're on the riverbank path, but I wanted to get as low to the river with the camera to get as much reflection in of the boathouse and the trees that are all lit up. So I've led on the path, but of course I'm in my own little world, and I'm not thinking, well, I'm just then a lump on the path in the dark by the river, and a couple nearly tripped over me. Because of course they're just walking down the path, aren't they?
And and you weren't like with it. You weren't.
Yeah. So I thought I need to just have me high vis on if I'm out in the dark in a place where I might be, or someone might trip up or bump into me. I'll chuck me high vis on now. So.
Yeah, I bet that'll get you into some places as well. So then, while we're talking about being on location and, you know, all those things, what's the one thing that you haven't yet captured that you would love to capture?
Well, that so I'm not going to go this, because I had another question that you might touch on in a minute, but for this one, and the easy answer would be the Northern Lights, but I'll be honest, I'd love to see it and obviously photograph it, but it's been done so much to death by everybody. I've lost a bit of interest in it, really. But there's a place in Anglesey, just you know, the little island off the top of Wales, northwest Wales, and there's a lighthouse there called Penman Point, and it's a small lighthouse. It's bigger than me, but it's but pretty much everything is, I think. It's one of those, I think it's a red and white striped lighthouse, a fairly old style one, but it's not the lighthouse as such. In May and June every year, the waters there have a particular type of plankton, and what this plankton does is it reacts with if you touch the water, it reacts. It's bioluminescent. So I don't know if you've ever seen this. We're literally luminous blue. It's one of the most incredible.
Now we want to go to Anglesey, right?
Yeah. So I'm thinking, right, I was intending on going, and of course, with the last 2 years, that you couldn't do or go anywhere. So I'm absolutely determined, even if I just have to put a tent in the car and sleep on the rocks in Anglesey.
See, you had me all up for a business success network road trip then, until you mentioned tents.
That's when we lost you then, wasn't it? The word tent just killed it stone dead.
Yeah, it's not happening. You can stay in a tent. I'll find me a nice B&B somewhere.
Yeah. So no, I would. To be fair, if there was a
that
B&B
sounds
around,
amazing.
I'd probably go. But that is the one thing that I've been after for. I've seen it 4 or 5 years ago, and just with being in work and everything, it wasn't possible. But now I'm full-time photography, it is possible. And then the last 2 years happened, so it's just been waiting. But this year, I've got to, again, we go back to the planning. I've got to be 100% sure with the dates that I go that I'm planning it properly, so that it's at its peak or whatever. But it's magnificent. This whole color and the lighthouse background and the night, and it's obviously it's at the ocean, so if it's a clear night, there'll be stars, and I've got a vision of what I want to capture.
Literally, you're selling me because I love a bit of nautical in my house.
Yeah.
I've got one of your lighthouse prints, and I love that. And actually, just listening to you talking about the different colors, the different tones, the background, this is kind of stuff as a photographer. I think photographers have this eye for detail that we don't necessarily see. We just want to rock up and, you know, have the photos done or look at something pretty or get the print on the wall. You guys, that, like you said, you're planning, you're doing all this. People don't realize what goes into the background. What is it that made you decide look into photography and have a career in photography? Because it's a world away from IT.
Yeah, so I suppose the person I have to thank for getting me into photography in the first instance is my uncle. I'll say Derv because we all call him Derv, or his name is Dave, but I don't know where Derv's come from. Who knows? But he's done photography for many years, back when there were film SLRs, and he's very good at it. He's a very good wildlife photographer. That's all he does. He goes up to Brandon Marsh and he photographs wildlife, birds, butterflies, dragonflies. And he's very knowledgeable. He knows, he's like walking around Brandon Marsh saying like this, "Oh, what do you know what that sound is?" And he tells, it's a goldfinch, or it's this, or it's that. I haven't got a clue, there. I've no idea. I can barely recognise them. Never mind, tell me what they're singing. But he's done it for years, and I bought just a little compact camera back in 2013 or maybe 2012 at Christmas. So my folks had bought me that. It was more really just obviously to get pictures of the kids and stuff. And then I was out in the garden photographing, there was ladybirds or raindrops on stuff, and I thought I quite enjoy this. And then I mentioned it to Dave and went and started going around Brandon a little bit with him. Then because I enjoyed it a bit more, I bought an entry level SLR camera just so I could get slightly better photos and a little compact. And the rest, as they say, is history. So it's been many years, but it's definitely Derv that really showed me when I got the SLR how it worked, how all the settings mattered with what you were taking. So he's the one I always thankful for getting me into it.
Way your skills to have that kind of personal tutor is the wrong word really, but that kind of mentor that was able to teach you and share with you, because he will have been passionate about it. You will have seen that passion over the years, and it's really lovely to see. Now we did touch on lockdown a little bit, because you know those 2 years we kind of you forget. I was chatting earlier to someone and I said, oh, it's got to be about 18 months, and they were like, Stacey, it's been 2 years since lockdown. It's probably 3 or 4 years. And whilst we've all been kind of on with stuff, we lost 2 years during this lockdown. I don't know where it's gone. How was it for you? Because as a photographer, it must have been, you know, there's certain industries, you know, you couldn't go into people's houses. It was tough, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had to pretty much just can it. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't, like you say, I couldn't go to houses or anything. So for the best part of probably 14, 15 months, I was just picking up a lot of warehouse work. bits and bobs, other bits and bobs as and when I could. But that was it. There was no business happening. There was nobody doing business headshots. I couldn't get into houses to do estate agent stuff. So it was only really April of last year where it just exploded again with the property work. And then I was fortunate enough that I don't have to do anything else. So that was kind of lucky. But yeah, for a couple of years, it just went on the back burner. I couldn't even go anywhere, particularly, certainly early on in the lockdown, because you were locked down.
Right, and that leads me on to kind of probably my last couple of questions. What are you most proud of then?
Well, so this is this will be the first announcement of this that I've made, actually, and until I get it on my socials as well. But last November, I entered a competition with the British Photographic Society and MC Summit or the Saatchi marketing agency in London. And I don't normally enter competitions, to be honest. It's not something I ever really do. I don't know what it was about this one that caught my eye, but I think it appeared in a Facebook feed, and I had a little look at it, and there was 5 different categories that you could enter a photo in, and one of which was downtime joy. So it was, well, what do people do in their downtime for a bit of joy and happiness and things. And I thought, I've got a picture that would suit that, because I'd taken a photo of the colour run. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the colour run. It's based on the.
I want to do one. I don't want to run. I just want to go colourful and.
Just go at the end when the DJ is and all the colours are there. I don't want to run it either. But it's based on the Holi festival, isn't it, in India, where they have the whole explosion of colours. That would be a dream to go and visit the real thing one day. But these colour runs happen all around the UK a few times a year. And so this was on at the NEC, just up the road from me. I thought, well, it'd be rude not to go and have a visit. I did a couple of pictures around the course of people running, but then made my way to the end of the stage, and there's a DJ there, and all the people were gathering, and they were handing out the little sachets with the colours in. And it was a really, really hot summer's day. So there was no wind in the air at all, not even a tiniest little breeze. And so when everybody had opened their sachets, and on the count of 3, 2, 1, just threw them up in the air, and I was obviously waiting with my camera, all the powder, which was luminous blue and pink and yellow and green, almost hung in the air. So it just sort of went up, and it didn't seem to fall down. It's almost slow motion. So I've captured this. It's the most incredible colour, it's the most colourful photo I've ever done. And that's the photo I entered, because it just looked, all the colours are just very joyful. I think if you see that many colours, it's why people love rainbows or disco lights, isn't it? It's just colourful.
Absolutely.
So I entered that and didn't think anything of it. And then just before Christmas, I think, or I can't remember when it was, but I had an email come through with the photography competition, opened it. And when you read something and then you're like, I want to read that again. And then read it a third and a fourth time. I know I've actually won this. So it was there was a few winning images in each category, but I've won one of the winners of that joy category. And what's really the most exciting thing is my work, that print is now going to be exhibited on billboard 6-foot style prints in Heathrow Airport, all around all the arrival and the departure lounges at every terminal, and in a big gallery space in one of the areas which I can't remember. But as an achievement of all the years of prints I've taken and all the stuff I've done, when I read that, I just thought that is as good as
what an amazing asset as well, to be able to go down to Heathrow, to see your work there, to take, please do get somebody with you that's going to take photos, because I know what photographers are like. They want to be that side of the camera, not this side. I'm telling you, as somebody who raves on about assets, you need to be in front of those pictures at Heathrow.
Oh, I will be. Yeah,
with,
I will.
Pointing fingers, whatever it is. Look.
Yeah, I'll even do a video.
This,
and I
this is you.
Okay. So yeah,
it's like you listen to me. Neil, I could talk. So pleased that we ended with that story on a high, because lockdown has been challenging. There will be definitely industries that are listening to this and thinking, I nearly gave it up. There was people doing, hints and tips and trying to take headshots over Zoom, and it was bonkers.
Yeah.
If we didn't live through it, we wouldn't believe it. Let's face it. Some of the stuff that people were doing, but you have completely come out the other side of it now. You're at Heathrow Airport.
Heathrow Airport.
And of course, without blowing our own trumpets here, you are always on the back of our magazine as well. So if you haven't yet checked out the Business Success magazine, go and find Neil's prints. They are always on the back with a really good quote that I kind of throw in as well. So
and the winning image will be on this
one. Yeah, it's on this one. So we are really going to town with your marketing assets this month.
Yeah.
Neil, I'm going to ask you the question that I always ask everybody, which is, what does business success look like to you?
So to me, my ultimate goal is that I eventually become well known enough that I can sell enough prints and then travel. I have a vision of a little Volkswagen camper van. Other camper vans are available, and and just to be able to scoot off around the country a couple of days a week, or even every other week, and go and capture places that are maybe a little bit off the beaten track, or just spend more time out capturing the stuff I love to do for the print. But obviously you have to have a point where you can afford to do that, because there are bills to pay and things. But that's my success would be that I can ease off a little bit on the property things and just spend a couple of days a week, or even every other week, just doing a little bit of traveling and going to new cities and capturing completely new places, and just expanding my horizons, and hopefully also do a book or two. I mentioned Andy just in a wildlife book. Well, I'd perhaps quite like to do something where I feel my best work is nightscape cities at night is where I really enjoy. I'd love to be able to do a book on some of the biggest cities around the UK, obviously London, Birmingham, Liverpool, Newcastle, places like that. So
you're giving me loads of ideas now. I'll be in your inbox going, what about this? What about this? And you'll be thinking, why did I ever say that to her?
Why have I mentioned that?
Because, that's what I'm like. I do get on at people when we hear a good idea, and I'd love a whole book of prints. It would be amazing.
Books and printed images for walls or stuff. But on a screen is great. But when you have something in front of you in a high gloss, high quality print, it's a whole different level. The quality is incredible, and that's what I want. I want to have a book and have people, a nice big A3 high quality gloss photo print book. And for people,
if only we knew a publisher that could work with books and magazines and things, hey?
I don't know. I've no idea.
I can see it now. Neil Porter's own magazines. It's waiting to happen. Neil, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can people find you? Where can they find your prints, most importantly?
So my main channel would be the website, which is all the W's, capturelife.uk, and there's a couple of boxes on there. One which is if you're a business. Scroll down is the wall art, and there's links to my gallery where you can find all the variety of prints I offer. And then my socials, my main two, probably Instagram, so it's at Capture Life UK, and I also have a Facebook page which is the same handle at Facebook /Capture Life UK.
Perfect. So go over and check Neil out, because he is a fantastic photographer, and there's so many different varieties of things there. And if you're a secret Colourpop fan, you'll be very happy with that stuff as well. Neil, thank you very much for today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much, Stacey.